So, why did we choose the boat we chose and not one of those Atlantics, one of those TS52s, one of those Lagoons, one of those Fountain Peugeots, one of those Shonnings, or whatever that is. So why would we buy a 30-year-old boat? What was going through our noggins to think buying a 30-year-old boat would be a good idea? Well, first of all,
let's do it.
We didn't think about it.
No, that's true.
We just did it.
Quite impulsive. But I think we had criteria. Let's go through the criteria of what we were looking for. Maybe that's a good way to share our insight into why we went with an old boat.
Yeah, so with any item that you get, whether it's a car or a house, a boat, a bicycle, or whatever it is, you need to get one that suits you and your needs and the experience you want to get out of it. Like, you don't go and buy a beautiful super lightweight hill climbing road bicycle to go downhill mountain biking. You know, if you try to do that, you're always going to be disappointed with your experience. Likewise, if you want to go and do street racing on a specialized tarmac racetrack, you're not going to go and buy a monster truck. You've got to get the right tool for the right job and the experience that you want to get out of whatever it is you're doing. Now, we didn't know cruising boats very well. We came from race boat world, and the two are quite different in that the amount of time you spend on the boat is different. The actual functionality of a boat is the same.
Yes, but you need certain things if you're going to live aboard longer than a couple of days.
On the Volvo 70 we didn't have a washing machine. Okay, on this boat we have a washing machine because the criteria in this boat stipulates we need a washing machine. So
I stipulate we need a washing machine.
Yeah. So it's again, you know, but the way you know, a gunboat 68 moves and sails and functions is the same way that the A-class I had or the NACRA 5.8s that we used to race work. The functionality of getting from point A to point B and the basic workings of it being a proper sailing boat is the same across the board. There are fundamentals that make a sailing boat work. You know, physics don't change because you're a cruising boat or a racing boat or a trailer boat or whatever it is.
I want to know what our criteria was.
Yeah. So our criteria
in order for us to go looking for, and how did we end up with Pikea?
Yeah.
So I think we had, first of all, there was a budget constraint.
A big budget constraint.
And multi-hulls are expensive.
Yep.
Well, we did know that we wanted that sort of platform because with 3 little kids, a little bit more extra space would be nice, and we we do enjoy the multi-hull sailing, so that is a bit of our background too. So we wanted a catamaran, maybe a trimaran. If we could have found a cool trimaran, I think we would have been all up for that as well.
For sure.
But there is a bit more living space on the catamaran.
Yep.
We had a budget constraint, which meant that we were looking at second-hand boats. And then I think then it came into, as you were talking about, the sailing performance of it, because our intention was to buy in Europe, but to sail it back to New Zealand, so there's a lot of sea miles to do.
Exactly.
And we needed a good boat to go ocean sailing. So what would you say would be the criteria for a good boat, Shane?
So for us and what we were doing, the things I was looking at was, one, in the second-hand category, what was available that had done these trips before. So that's the first good indication as to whether it's a suitable boat, because other people have done it.
Well, that's right. Pikea, which was previously called Andromede, had already gone to Australia and done the South Pacific.
Yeah, had already sailed from Europe, did the milk run all the way into Asia with the very, very first owners that bought the boat. So we're actually owner number 3. So this boat doesn't have too many owners, but the first owners actually sailed it across the Atlantic to Martinique to try and make it a charter boat. That didn't work out. Sailed it back to France, where the Italian owner that we bought it from bought it, and then he sailed it halfway around the world. So we knew that this particular boat had been there and done that, so that was the first big tick.
And we were also looking for a boat that had, in terms of efficiency under the water, as less things hanging out the bottom as possible. So that includes things like the keels or skegs or whatever you call them.
We wanted the underneath of our boat to look like the boats that we raced on the beach all the time. But we were familiar with the bigger multis that we raced and were familiar with. So
yeah, and if you followed some of our previous videos, Shane even went to the extent to make all of the external skin fittings flush and put combings on anything that we had to still stick out the bottom, because part of keeping the flow on your boat is helping to make it quicker.
It all adds up.
Yeah,
it all adds up.
And then so by looking for a boat that doesn't have a keel, by default means we need to look at daggerboards.
Exactly. So
I think
and there was 2 criteria for the daggerboards as well, because coming to the Caribbean and even more so into the Pacific was going into shallow lagoons. That meant we were talking about draft restrictions, and we basically wanted a boat that could go into a lagoon that was 1 meter of water depth and get in and out. So that dictated a lot as to what we were looking at.
They have the added bonus that they improve sailing performance.
When we're racing off the beach cats, one of the biggest things you play with on top of the sheets is your board placement. When it gets windy, you have less board, so you got less grip and less falling over moment. That's the technical word of the day, falling over moment. When you're going downwind, you pull them up so you get less drag and you go faster, and you can tweak them depending on the sea state to make them more maneuverable or less maneuverable, or slide down the waves. A lot of this fundamental sailing stuff is learned in these small off the beach cats.
Yes, so if you want to learn how to use your daggerboards, go and do some off the beach.
Go and get an F18, an Acra 5, whatever it is.
That'll help you.
It will help no end. So the other things we were looking for is just the basic shape of the hulls. Okay, the shape of the hulls, they're skinny, but that is an indication that the boat is light. So they go hand in hand. With a heavy boat, you need fat hulls or very deep hulls. With light boats, of course, you end up with skinnier hulls and shallower drafts, just because you don't have to displace as much water. So a giveaway when you're looking for the boat was how skinny are the hulls. And also for me, one of the big surprises when I was looking at these boats is that the hulls are canted.
Oh yes, our hulls are canted, aren't they?
Right.
Yes.
So that means that they splay out. They're canted, they are not asymmetric. Asymmetric hulls and canted hulls are two totally different kettles of fish. Don't get them mixed up. And I was also filled with confidence that this boat would work because I knew who the designers were. Locke Crowther was the primary designer of this boat, and he is a bit of a legendary designer in Australia, and forged multi-hulls forward in that light fast category down there really well. So I had a lot of confidence that what I was looking at with this boat made sense. It also helped that we used to race a 40-foot Crowther in Australia as well, so we sort of knew what to expect and that it would be a good thing. It couldn't be too far wrong because it was a reputable designer. The yard was also a reputable yard. We hadn't heard too much of Catana when we bought the boat or were looking at the boat, but a little bit of Google searching very, very quickly informs you that it's a well-built boat.
We had a friend who had the Catana 47 too, or 471.
Yeah.
And he was really enjoying his time on that too. So
Yeah.
we had first-hand feedback from somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay, so what have we got? We've got Daggerboards, weight,
Skinny hulls.
and ours were canted as
And
well.
canted. So
But I don't
why
think
would
that's a criteria.
it's not a criteria, but I got excited because what it did is it makes the boat more powerful for the same weight and the same structure and the same footprint. So when we raced particularly A-class cats, we would cant the hulls. It was very important to cant the hulls, and the reason we'd cant them is when you're flying the hull, the leeward hull that was remaining in the water was bolt upright, and its design waterlines and shapes and everything were exactly as designed. In a cruising car, you're never going to fly hulls.
I don't want to fly a hull.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, why would you put it in there? But what it is it's just free power. It's free writing moment. If you can put more power into the boat without increasing the weight, why not?
So then we found this particular boat that ticked all those boxes.
Yeah.
So once we got over to Italy where we found where it was, and we had a look at it, it was in a pretty sorry state.
It was
None of the electronics worked on board.
Yeah, we bought it on the internet. We didn't pay for it, but we'd made the deal over the internet, flew to Italy, and were quite committed because we were pretty confident we were going to buy this boat and sail away.
I was happy to walk away, but Shane was like, no, we're buying it. And so because at that stage I was ready to walk away because the interior was terrible.
Yeah.
The windows were all crazed, and he had tried to fix a lot of the stuff himself and done a terrible job. None of the electronics worked, like I said. I think the lights may be turned on, but that was about it. There was no autopilot. There was no wind vane. There was
dead old truck batteries. It had one of the 3 solar panels working.
The engines were so old that the odometer had stopped working back whenever.
It was just like, oh my god, what are we walking into here?
So, but Shane put an offer in on it anyway. Oh, it had only one rudder. I think this boat's destined to only have one rudder.
Yeah.
The other one was an emergency rudder that he'd put on.
Yeah.
But you got you got Ollie in to come and have a look at it with you.
Yep.
So we got a guy who works a lot in TP52 world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the surveyor, and he came and had a look at it with you. So what did you guys find, or what were you looking for that convinced you that this, with all of these problems that it had and the fact that it was over 30 years old, all of that aside, it was still a great boat?
Yeah. Okay, so one, we had a look at the boat. We had a look at the engine. We had a look at the It was in our price bracket still, so that was a big driving factor, and there was
Probably the biggest factor.
there were no other boats in the price bracket we were looking at, so we had one shot at this. What were we looking for? Well, one, like we'd said, the owner had already taken this thing halfway around the world. The previous owner before him had already done 2 transatlantics, so the boat had done 3 transatlantics before we even got to it.
And so were you looking for perhaps damage from that?
I was looking for structural issues, so if there was going to be any problems with the boat, it would have shown its face. All right, this is one of the good things about buying an older second-hand boat, is if it's been through the ringer, what's going to break has broken, and that is a lot of the time actually a good thing, because the cool thing about plastic boats is when they break, you can fix them and make them better. So what we were looking for were critical areas and points of failure. So that was hard junctions between hulls and wing decks, beams and hulls, mast steps, chain plates, rudder connections.
Chain plates, how did we go with that one?
Well, we got 3-4 years out of it before they were a real issue. And looking at internal structure and how it was bonded and put together, and the typical way that the boat was built, because there's a lot of areas we couldn't get to, but the evidence in the areas we could get to would indicate how the rest of the boat structure was put together, because there's a general theme in the way that a boat's built.
Because a lot of people are going to ask about bulkheads now, aren't they?
Yeah. So yes, one of the things we looked at were how the bulkheads were done, and for us it looks normal. So the way we see bulkheads done all the time is that there are composite foam and glass, or foam and carbon, or Nomex carbon, that's scribed, coved and taped into the boat. That's the normal thing. That's a normal way to build a boat. What we didn't realize is actually there's this thing in the cruising boat world where they just chop out random bits of plywood and glue them in with some spooge and call it done. That is not a good way to build a boat, and it will always lead to trouble further down the track.
So I think too, there is, when you're looking at an old boat, is knowing your ability and what you can do yourself and what you're happy to live with as well, because you obviously have, you must have picked up by now, we know what we're looking at, and Shane can fix pretty much anything. So things like that, where we knew there were potential problems, as long as we could keep an eye on it and we knew what to do if it ever became a problem, then that's the risk that we took on.
Now I guess we look at a boat very differently from most others, because we understand every aspect of the boat, and we know what's dangerous, what's not dangerous, what's a big problem, what's a small problem, etc., etc. So if you're sort of new and looking for, why would I buy a 30-year-old boat like Shane and Anna did, you've got to ask yourself, do you understand boats well enough to look at it with a critical eye? Are you looking for your bulkhead tapings, for example, as a structural thing? Are you looking at foam cores versus balsa cores, and the pluses, the minuses, and where they could be critical, non-critical to the structure? All of those sorts of things. That's where buying an older boat gets a little bit more tricky for a lot of people, because they just don't have the knowledge or the understanding of boats.
Or want to do the work, let's be honest.
Want to do the work,
we
exactly.
didn't want to do the work.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of what we could see on the market at the time, and even now, today, 5 years on, that I don't think there are a lot of great options if you want a good multi-hull
there's
cruiser.
not many good sailing boats available. And I say that, and that it's a sailing boat, because there are fantastic catamarans and trimarans out there that function as a boat, but as functioning as a good sailing boat, they don't meet that criteria very well. When this boat hit the market, it was a spaceship. It was the latest, greatest, most amazing boat ever. This was
like gunboat.
Yeah, it was the
33
thing.
years ago.
Yeah. So the building techniques and the materials they were using,
state of the art,
was state of the art. We met subsequently guys that originally built this boat in the yard, and one of the state of the art things was vacuum bagging the foam core into the molds. And we're like, oh, well, that's stock standard practice these days. But back then, it wasn't. It was also the way that they did the foam core. They didn't use the curve cut contour foam cores. They actually used plain sheet and just drilled the vent holes in it and all the rest of it. So they actually did quite a good job of it, and it shows because the boat hasn't delammed and fallen apart and all the rest of it.
No, it's a bit rough on the inside in places.
The finishing is a little bit rugged, but yeah.
It was designed to have lining put over the top of it, and it's a production boat after all, so I mean you've got to understand all of that when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
But it was very dry boat. The core was not balsa or timber.
Yeah. But what was typical of the day was putting plywood hard points in. So that's under winches, under cleats, in chain plates, where the front beam attachment, wherever things got bolted. The method of the day was to put plywood in there because it was a good, hard, lightweight, strong structural component.
Yeah, you can't bolt into foam.
Yeah.
There are different ways to approach it now, but at the time.
And it works. And it is still a method that's used. It's not ideal because if the fitting is not sealed properly and you do get moisture in there, of course, it's an organic material. It will rot away. So that's the only issues we've actually had on this boat. Is these small plywood inserts on some of the fittings have just gone, and one of them was the chain plate. So.
Just a small plywood insert on just one of the fittings.
Yeah,
no big deal.
Just change it out. But we could change it out. And why are we persisting with putting all of this work into this 30-year-old boat?
I think it's going to be a great boat. We've got some great plans for it, and I think it's worth investing our time in it because we have, even though it's been really tough and things are falling apart and breaking and and getting enough money to fix everything's challenging, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end.
Yes, with the upgrades, like the upgrade of the mast and the longeron and the front beam has transformed the boat to a modern sailing boat. What we can do and the sails we can fly has transformed the way the boat sails. And if this tech was available 30 years ago, this boat would have had it, because that's just the philosophy behind this boat. And first and foremost is that the boat will sail well, and by upgrading the key features of the boat sailing well, we've gone and done that, and we'll continue to do that. And give us another year or two of beating our heads against the wall and getting these projects done, we will actually end up with a boat that is, you just can't get. There is a lot of value that gets overlooked in these older boats. It's hard to sort of name out brands that you want to go looking for, but like I was saying before, you've got to look at the fundamentals, the basic physics of what makes a sailing boat good. If you don't understand it, start at the basics and go and look at a beach cat. It's a pretty simple, it's down to the barest basic billy bones of what makes that boat sail. In a case of a catamaran, 2 hulls, 2 beams, 1 mast, 2 rudders, and 9 times out of 10 a set of daggerboards. There are cats, beach cats without daggerboards, and they're the Hobie 16s and your Dart 16s and a few others. But you go and have a look and compare how they sail compared to the beach cats with a daggerboard, and everyone will tell you it's daylight difference. So look back at the bare basic fundamentals of what makes a simple boat sail. then apply that to the big boat. Then you can start adding furniture to live into the thing.
Yeah, then you start deducting your compromises.
Yeah, yeah. But the first key thing you got to do is, if you're looking for a sailing boat, look at boats that are proper sailing boats. Don't go looking at other cruising boats and compare one to the other. Look at sailing boats that work.